Hello, and thanks for joining us today. We're with Sage Construction and Real Estate, and today we're going to talk about how to access data across business entities in minutes, not days. So Sage Construction and Real Estate, we provide solutions to the entire construction and real estate development market. Today we're going to be focused on our Sage Intacct Construction product. So with us today is myself, Dustin Anderson. I'm the Vice President of the Construction and Real Estate division within Sage, and Dennis Staeskel, who's a director within our Construction and Real Estate group who's been focused on the construction industry for 40 years. So really looking forward to this. A couple of housekeeping ideas. Feel free to type questions into the chat box. We want to make this interactive. We won't do so with audio, but we will do so via questions in the chat. And at the end, we'll switch to audio. So we'll be able to do a short Q&A question and answer session with the stuff that you've thrown into the chat box. So we're looking forward to that. And then also we will send a copy of the presentation and links to the recording after this event has concluded. So that being said, let's turn this over and start talking about how delivering on growth and how it's hard to do. And Dennis, what are some of the unique challenges contractors face as their organizations grow?
Yeah, thanks, Dustin. As a construction company grows, quite often they start with a single office, a single location. One of the first time areas that they often expand is they add another office. They start expanding outside the region. That brings with it different licensing, different requirements. One of the companies I'm going to talk about later, as they move to a different state, they have to actually set up separate LLCs and separate entities. So that's one reason why, as you grow, it becomes more challenging. Areas of risk. I've seen a lot of companies, construction companies, separate their organization into different legal entities just to help on the risk management side. A GC company might have a self-performing subcontractor organization, and they in essence hire that sub. So that's another reason why we see multiple entities, multiple lines of business. Quite often, let's say I'm an MEP contractor, so I do mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. Some jobs I might have 3 independent contracts, so I might have multiple divisions. A service company versus a construction company, or then again, a development company, a real estate development company. A lot of times they will be the development arm, the investment arm, as well as the construction arm. So they'll set up different entities for that. So those are some of the reasons why, as you look at a solution that is really not built for multi-entities, and your company wants to grow and expand, you're gonna run into those challenges. The heart of your system of your system of records, of course, is your financial system, and that sits right in the middle of anything. And if you don't have the right one there, you're going to face some challenges. Stakeholders, as you get into the larger mix of companies, you often will have multiple stakeholders. You will have regional vice presidents who are totally in charge of that office, or line of business vice presidents. So you'll have different needs depending on who that particular stakeholder is. You definitely, again, as you diversify your businesses, you're gonna have a back office system, but most typically you have one of those. Very often now we're seeing operational front office systems. So we're seeing, a Procore come into integration. We're seeing an eSub requirements for integration, or whatever it might be. So you've got to really make sure you have a system that those operational tools can really integrate with on the financial side. Of course, distributed work teams, they don't build the buildings inside of your office. So just by the nature of where the work is done, there's challenges there. And if your system can't get out to those people in some form or fashion, there's challenges. Then you add the regional aspect to it, where we've got people working in Dallas and Fort Worth, in San Antonio, or wherever it might be. That brings along challenges. Core processes. As a small company, The way you do those small processes or those core processes might be very simple, very easy. When I do a month-end close on an entity, well, boom, I'm done, got it done in 2 or 3 days. Not that hard. But other ones like, I'd add a vendor. Well, if I've got 15 or 20 entities and I've got to need that vendor in all of them, that what might have been a simple task before is now complex. So as your businesses grow, you run into challenges like that. And last but not least is faster reporting timeframes. And I actually look at that and I think to myself, is the time frame really any faster? And typically it's not. Think of a case where your company goals and your finance department objectives are to have a close done by, let's say, the 10th of the month. So for years you've been hitting that because you're closing a single entity. But now, as we have 10 entities or multiple lines of business, do you get relief of not being able to, do you get extra days to close that? No, you still have to close those entities in the same amount of time. So you still only have 10 days. So it's really critical that, as you grow, you have certain areas and challenges that you're going to start coming across as you hit these financial boundaries.
Yeah, it's great feedback, Dennis, on the challenges that growing organization might face. I'm sure a lot of people are shaking their heads in appreciation of this. So how does a company know that or realize that they've outgrown their current system?
Yeah, as I said before, in a single entity organization, things can be relatively simple. I'm not saying that in all single entities they are, but they can be simpler. And so you really need to watch and you need to observe to see where you're running into challenges, where you're spending more time, where things are becoming inefficient. You don't want the finance department to become the bottleneck for the business. You want them to be a strategic partner in the leadership and growth of the business. You find increased efficiencies in your process, even the simple ones. Like I mentioned earlier, adding a vendor, adding a customer. If we have to do that 20 times, that's going to be much more time consuming, much more inefficient as we go. Standardization is another one that fits into there. I really got to look at a system that can help me enforce standardization across these different entities. You want to find a solution that you don't have to add staff. Many times as a small company grows, they find, well, I'm going to add another person. I'm going to add another person. Well, that's really not scalable. You just can't keep adding people. You find individuals in the organization asking for more and more financial information. And they ask for it in different ways. They don't just say, well, I need a P&L. I need a P&L by location, by type of work, a variety of different things. Your month-end close starts getting longer. As I mentioned before, if you're doing more manual month-end closes and the number of them increases because you have grown, you're gonna start running into challenges there. So kind of watch to see, do you have a lot of the same thing you're doing over and over and over the same way you've done it in the past? You'll notice and you'll observe, and this kind of goes along with, companies asking for different reporting, is you'll find that companies will start working outside of the finance department. If they need to get a report out and they have to wait because finance can't get to it, they will solve that problem. And of course, we all know the risk of that the data might not be as accurate. It might not agree with your financial records, and again, as they add these entities and they start looking at, they're going to start looking at the company differently. They're going to say, what are the profit margins in Dallas compared to Houston? Are our hotels doing the same profit margin across our different regions? From a customer perspective, How are we doing with the Home Depot stores across all of our regions, all of our areas? And I don't want to look at it strictly by entity. I want to go cross entity. And so that becomes really, really important is, what are those things to watch for that is really eating into, number one, efficiencies, or number two, just not getting the right data to the right people.
That's great feedback. And I think we've got a perfect customer case study to kind of highlight that. And so for the November Sage Intacct Advantage virtual conference, I know you interviewed a company called Blackmon Mooring. Blackmon Mooring was one of the first companies to implement Sage Intacct Construction. Can you tell us a little bit about them, Dennis, and their journey?
Yeah, and I had the pleasure of working with this company in the past for as they were doing some work, and then as their company grew and they got to the point where they were having challenges. And a little bit about Blackmon. They're a really, really, really interesting company. If you go out to their website, their motto is restore, rebuild, recover. And as you listen to those three words, it really they really lend what they do. They basically react to different types of damage, of disasters, be it fire damage, water damage due to floods, storms, plumbing issues in residential, natural disasters, hurricanes, tornadoes, whatever they might be. Man-made disasters, 9/11, they were on site at 9/11. The plane crash in the Hudson, they were on site to help do recovery there. In addition, though, and if you think about that, a lot of that is the restore and the recover. The rebuild is where the construction site comes in. And so this organization, after something gets broke or get damaged because of these catastrophes, they then come in and offer construction assistance. And the reason that's interesting about it is the diversity of the company. It's truly a multi-dimensional company with service, with construction, with personal effects recovery, the document restoration, media recovery, which all lends to how do I track that particular project or that particular event, and how do I track the cost against it? Where do they work? I mentioned this earlier that quite often some companies might have legislation or restrictions that say that if you're going to perform in the state, you have to be a separate LLC. And in this restoration area, that's pretty common. So as a result of that, they have 30 offices throughout the country. That in itself is a challenge with 30 different offices, let alone them being, in many cases, multiple entities. And I've had the pleasure to work with David and Gary now for a couple of years. They both are experienced in their industry and in their functional area, as well as they're very, very familiar with this multi-dimensional type company. And they found themselves, as they worked with the company, and Gary, for example, 24 years, that there wasn't products in the industry to really solve their needs. So for many, many years, they had a lot of homegrown development, which led to different challenges. As we look at these challenges, some of the things that Dave and Gary chatted about as we talked were, number one, just inefficiencies. That flow of data between the field and the back office was not as timely as it needed to be. And if you think in their particular market, where an event can happen 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, that they've always got to be moving that data as quickly and efficiently as they can. And that was a challenge. They also found their old systems, because they really weren't multi-entity, it required a lot of manual data entry. Things had to be set up multiple times to add an entity. So if they venture into a new region where they have to add a new entity, the effort to set up that new entity was days. And then you get to the whole challenges of multiple entities again, and the ability to get at the data, the ability to look at the data from different perspectives, the ability to drill down into the data. Those were all challenges that the folks at Blackmon Mooring found themselves into. And many times it was also the consolidation of that data. They're still one corporation, so they still need to bring these different companies together. So what is life with Sage Intacct Construction like after we've been through an implementation? So their implementation actually started in March. Dustin mentioned on the introduction that the product that we're kind of talking about here is Sage Intacct Construction. And that was actually launched in March of this year at the ConExpo show. And we've got, and with that, Blackmon Mooring said, okay, we want to be involved with the launch and we want to participate in it. But more importantly, we needed to solve some of those problems. So we started their implementation way back in March. I believe their go live was in May, and the implementation followed a pattern of entities. So we would bring on an entity in a line of business, and we'd bring on the next entity in the line of business. And of course, the first one was harder, second one was easier, and third one was becoming much easier then again. So that was kind of the process that was followed. Another side project that was going on at the same time was an integration project. Blackmon Mooring had built out a very powerful payable and credit card approval system that they really didn't want to give up. They were used to it. They had distributed it throughout their organization, and they really didn't want to change. They also had operational tools for emergency dispatching, which were critical. Their timekeeping was very specialized because it involved permanent, and if you could think about these disasters and some of the manpower that's often required, they had to bring on temporary labor fast and quickly and efficiently. So with all that, they had an integration project going on at the same time. So as we concluded or continue to work on these, what are some of the benefits they're seeing? First and foremost is access to data pretty much any time in real time. So if an accounts payable bill is pushed from their routing system, their internal routing system into Intacct, it's there and it shows up on cost reports. It shows up on project profitability reports, et cetera, et cetera. They've been able to start getting their employees more into the self-serving way. Just go get it rather than having someone from finance run the report. And Gary just loves that we don't have to deal with servers anymore. We're in this true native cloud environment. We talked a little bit about adding in abilities that, there was other things that have, Blackmon Mooring is a growing company. They needed something that would allow them to scale. And, some of the things that are allowing them to do that is the ease of adding new entities, the reduction of manual and data entry, and just that whole ability to scale the business up without adding people. And the last but not least is I'm going to share with you here shortly some of the types of reporting that they're doing and the ability to get at the data quickly and see the data live with those drill down capabilities. And we're going to see some of that here in a second. So, as I look at this and I've worked with this company, I'm really excited to see where they're going to be in a year, because every time I talk to Dave or Gary, they say, I just found something new in the software. And they're really excited about how they can then roll that out in a scaled environment like they currently are facing.
Dennis, it's really interesting as I listen to you talk here, and you talked a little bit about integration and the accounts payable and their credit card approval app and some of that stuff that's really core to their business, and they didn't have to give that up because of the open APIs and integration with Sage Intacct. But so what I'd love to see now is what you've got teed up here is a little bit of demonstration. Show us what Sage Intacct looks live.
Great. Well, this is the desktop, and this is kind of the landing page where you come into, and typically when a person logs in, they come to a home page like this. Now, this home page, if you wanted it to, it could be a dashboard page as compared to something like this. Those are totally your choices. But my focus today is going to really be, again, on this multi-entity concepts. And one of the areas that first comes into play is how do I navigate around in this multi-entity solution? And it's actually relatively simple. There's a couple different ways you can get there. I go to this little drop down right over here and pick it. I could go to this list here and pick it. This is the most recent. The one I find myself using most often is this one. And these are the way I've got my company set up is I've got it set up where I've got kind of a larger holding company. And then I've got a group of trade contractors. I got a GC company. I've got a residential company. I got a development company that is also part of my overall portfolio. So we basically just pick to the area that you want. Now, this top area allows you to basically see data from any entity that you want as long as you've got access to the top level. So from here, I can go into, for example, a dashboard, and I'm going to pull up one that I use for really demonstrating a lot of the power of the system, and I call it my foundation dashboard. And you can see here, I've got data represented, and my focus today is on the project. Balance sheets and income statements. The system can do all those things, but we're here to talk about construction. And so I want to look at projects. As I look at projects, I've got to deal with, of course, my total cost, my total billings on it. How much was my estimate on it? What's this contract worth? What's the commitment on it across all my entities? So I'm looking at some jobs here that are commercial jobs. I've got some residential stuff here as well. So I can look across these different entities. Again, that's the advantage of the top level. Now, if I was working at one of the entities, so I'm going to go to my GC entity, and you'll notice it automatically reacts to the entity a little bit immediately. So you notice the list of projects that are available. It automatically cuts it down to show me the projects for that particular entity. While I'm at this top level again, we've got variety of things here, performance cards. We've got different types of financial reporting. Here, this I find interesting. And again, the type of report here I'm showing is a work in progress report. But if you wanted it to be other types of reporting, you could. But this one, I'm looking at my projects by line of business across all entities. Here, I'm looking at my projects across all entities for those that are in Georgia versus Texas. So it really gives me the ability to kind of drill into these projects from different perspectives. Going back to just my GC one, I could also look at my data and I could slice it a little bit differently. Notice here I've got some filters up here. Maybe I'm interested, in all my jobs as of, I'm going to advance here a month, and I'm going to go into April. And all I do then is say apply, and it goes out, refreshes the data, pulls it back in, and shows me the April numbers. Now I'm going to actually go to May, and you'll notice here that I pick up a job because I added a job in May, and I'm going to pick up another job, 20-006. So again, these boards react to the data. Maybe I'm interested in certain types of jobs. I want to look at all my hotel jobs. Again, apply, and it goes out, locates those. So I can slice and dice this data very easily. Here again, hotel jobs. Now, if I wanted to do my comparisons like I did on the other one where I was comparing one state to another or one type of project to another, I could do that same thing here at a more granular level. So if I wanted to list hotel projects and then warehouse projects together, I could. Or another deviation on that might be by project manager. I want to see what Mr. Sanford is doing and what his profit margins are looking like on his jobs as of the end of May. Now, with all that, one of the things you probably haven't you've noticed yet is I'm working at a very high level. So this is the data. A lot of times, project managers will look at, VP of operations will look at, etc. But we also have to be able to get down to the detail. And as I look at the detail, I might go to a report like this cost overview report, be able to pull it up, and again look at the data from a slightly different perspective. I want to know more detail about what we're doing on this job. So I press a little button here and I say, well, I want to include my cost codes. So all of a sudden, I expand the data out and I see my totals by cost code. Now, if I wanted to, I could do it again and bring in cost type. We're all probably familiar for those companies that self-perform, labor versus material, whatever. And I might even want to say, well, I wonder how we're doing on labor across the whole job. Just kind of pull it over, and there's all my labor across the job. And I could put totals in here and things like that if I wanted to. So with these dashboards, be it by organization or by organization or by entity, I've got many different ways to look at the data. And then the last part I wanted to kind of touch on a little bit is, if I have a big system like this and I have all these entities, I still have to have controls in place. So as a result of the security system that we built into the software, I'll go to my company, I can set up security from kind of multiple dimensions. First one is roles. I want to set up specific roles in the organization. And then for those roles, I get to define what that role can do. I don't want them doing anything in GL or AP or et cetera, but I do want to provide different levels of functionality on the project side. And I could go down to, I could do lists of things. I could view the data, add, edit, delete. So quite a level of granularity on just basically the basic role-based security. But in addition to that, again, in a multi-entity environment, depending on how you do your work and depending on the individuals, you might want to restrict people by entity. So again, relatively simple to do. I'll pull up a person here. I'm going to pull up Chris, and I can start restricting them by role. Person could be a member of multiple roles. I can also do it by entity. So if I wanted to say, well, in this particular case, this individual can only work in the general construction entity, I can set that right here, and that is where they would be restricted. They would always have to work within this area. So that kind of gets a little bit at, a little bit around the security. But there's other very, very tactical things. I've mentioned this concept a couple times. If you don't have a multi-entity system, but you are a multi-entity company, something as simple as adding vendors. I might have to go to multiple spots to add the same vendor. So one of the features that we have inside of Intacct for multi-entity is the ability to add the vendor, in this case, at the top level. And then from there, I get to choose the type of access for it. You notice this particular vendor, it's unrestricted. I can use this vendor at any different level. Things like 1099s are automatically maintained by entity. But if for some reason I wanted to restrict this vendor, I could restrict it to a specific area. Maybe this is an investor that I only want this investor where I'm going to have to do payouts to. I only want them to be accessible in the development company. And it's as easy as adding it that way. So very easy to do that. Now, if I have cases where I always know that I want that individual or at that company or that customer only accessible at the bottom level forever, I can do that. For example, residential is, I think, a great example of that. And if you think about a lot of residential customers, if all I do is build homes and build commercial buildings, but my residential, am I ever going to need the customer, the homeowner over on the commercial side? No, not really. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add customers at the residential space. These customers then are only available at this residential entry. So the ability to kind of control where you add these things is very, very powerful. And then the last example of that is projects. Many times, again, depending on your entities, your projects, you only want projects available while in that entity. So in this example here, these are the projects that I've got available in my residential entity, whereas in my commercial entity or my general construction entity, my jobs are, I've got a different set of jobs and only those are available. If I'm setting up a subcontract or a PO, so let's say I was adding a new subcontract and I actually get in here and I go to my list of jobs, I'm only going to see my commercial jobs, or in this case, I have one at the top level, which I also have access to. And there are some reasons for that. And I'm just not going to go into that depth at this point. So, bottom line, as we look at the multi-entity solution, we've got to deal with navigation, we've got to deal with data access, and we've got to deal with tactical efficiencies. And Sage has done a great job Sage Intacct has done a great job of addressing all of these capabilities. So with that, Dustin?
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Dennis. That was a fantastic overview. And so if we talk about kind of a rock solid financial core, everything's always got to be up to date. And you'll see that we tackled the multi-entity, multi-currency, consolidated reporting, all the items that are up on the screen here. And if you go ahead and bounce to the next slide, Dennis, I think this is kind of a very fun statement, but 80% of our customers wish they would have switched sooner. So, if this is something that you're contemplating, we've got some contact information on the next screen. So feel free to reach out to us for more information. Be happy to show you what your business would look like running Sage Intacct Construction. You can reach us at productinfo.cre@sage.com or at the 800 number listed. We are running a little short on time, so we will get to all of the Q&A questions. If you asked a question in the chat, we sure appreciate it. We will respond to you individually on those. And we really appreciate you joining. So thank you for your time.